All right, let's jump right into it. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're not just looking at a piece of history. We're looking at the digital anatomy of a resignation. Specifically, how a singular world-changing historical moment exists right now as a digital artifact. It is literally an incredible journey from physical paper to pixels, and we're going to see how the modern digital architecture holds that history up for us to see today.
So, our agenda for today is pretty straightforward. We'll start with the 1974 resignation letter itself, then look at the anatomy of a digital artifact, check out its global Wikipedia footprint, and finally look at some modern media echoes.
Okay, Section 1, the 1974 resignation letter. You know, what's wild to think about here is the sheer juxtaposition. On one hand, you have the earth-shattering reality of Richard Nixon leaving office, right? The constitutional crisis, the massive media frenzy, just the absolute weight of that moment. But on the other hand, you have the cold, completely sterile reality of how it exists today as a web file. To make sure you and I can actually learn about it right now, all that immense political weight has to be meticulously translated into sterile metadata. It's just a fascinating shift from this profoundly human, chaotic event to a precisely coded digital object.
To really ground us in the facts of the actual document, let's look at how it's summarized globally. This Turkish Wikipedia summary reminds us that this specific letter was sent to Secretary of State Henry Kissinger on August 9, 1974, which officially marked the end of a presidency. And what's cool is that even in Turkish, the core data points remain universally understood. Nixon, Kissinger, August 9, 1974. A single, solitary piece of paper that completely changed the course of a nation.
Moving right along to Section 2, Anatomy of a Digital Artifact.
So the really crucial point I want you to take away here is that an event that reshaped American politics is now reduced to exactly 1.19 megabytes of raw data. Notice how it's officially categorized in the U.S. National Archives under ARC identifier 302035. It just exists as an image/JPEG with pixel dimensions of 2398 by 3150. And why does that matter? Well, because this is the universal language of the modern archive. For the digital generation to access the resignation of a president, it first must become a JPEG. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates how history is maintained by everyday digital citizens. Think about it. The specific high-resolution version of the file we rely on today didn't just magically appear out of thin air. It was actually meticulously uploaded to the Wikimedia Commons on January 5, 2009 by a user who goes by the name Vanderdecken. It really highlights this amazing democratization of historical preservation. Sure, the National Archives provided the source material, but it took a dedicated, everyday internet user to place it into the open-source ecosystem that we all use today.
All right, let's zoom out to Section 3, a global Wikipedia footprint. Now, this isn't just an American artifact. It actually has a profound global historical resonance. The Wikimedia community has this super rigorous process for identifying the finest, most significant media files, and this single JPEG has managed to achieve featured picture status across multiple, totally distinct cultures. It holds this elite status not just on the English Wikipedia, but also on the Persian Wikipedia, where it's recognized as a featured picture, and similarly on the Turkish Wikipedia, too. It just goes to show you that the mechanics of a democratic transition and a massive political scandal are universally compelling subjects way beyond the borders of the United States.
Tracking this timeline shows a really fascinating leap. So the physical document was signed and delivered on August 9, 1974. Then it essentially lay dormant in the physical archives for decades until its digital upload in January 2009. But here is where the highly structured nature of digital communities really shines. The community purposely timed this file to be featured on the English Wikipedia's main page as the picture of the day on August 9, 2009. That is exactly 35 years to the day after the actual event. It's literally a digital commemoration of a physical milestone.
And just to give you an idea of its reach, exactly 27 different pages use this specific file on the English Wikipedia alone. It's not just sitting in some isolated digital gallery gathering dust, it's actively weaving its way right into the educational fabric of the internet. It's embedded in articles ranging from the Watergate scandal itself to the 25th Amendment, all the way to the general concept of a letter. It basically acts as this visual anchor across 27 completely distinct learning pathways.
Let's wrap things up with Section 4. Modern media echoes.
Even decades later, this event isn't just history. It is actively used as a metric for current events. If we impartially look at today's media landscape, we see major outlets like AP News directly invoking the 1974 resignation.
They're using it as a comparative data point to analyze the political dynamics and strategies of current legislative bodies. The ghost of 1974 is routinely summoned by journalists to help readers make sense of the modern political arena.
But what is truly surreal about consuming history today is the chaotic digital environment where all this analysis actually lives. When you visit the AP News homepage, that very serious Nixon analysis sits right next to an incredibly disparate array of breaking headlines. I mean, we're talking about news regarding rogue AI hacking companies, debates over current election policies and birthright citizenship, and literally right alongside it all, capybaras crashing a Brazilian legislature. What you should really take away from this is how the modern digital feed completely flattens context. Profound historical analysis is forced to compete for your attention directly against artificial intelligence and giant chill rodents.
And it's not just the rapid-fire daily news either. Even highly academic, deeply researched sources like the Pew Research Center continue to publish extensive deep dives into the era. They provide rigorous statistical context with articles titled "How the Watergate Crisis Eroded Public Support for Richard Nixon." This is exactly the kind of critical, in-depth historical analysis that forms the absolute backbone of our understanding of past political climates.
Yet, the reality of retrieving this academic data today comes with a very modern interruption. Right after reading that profound historical title on the Pew Research site, the very next piece of text the source code hits us with is this. These cookies allow the website to remember choices you make. Yep, a mandatory digital privacy banner. Before you can even begin to understand the erosion of public support in 1974, you have to negotiate your personal data rights in the present.
Which leads us to the end of our explainer today, and it leaves us with this final, somewhat amusing, but definitely thought-provoking question. Is our modern pursuit of historical truth inextricably linked to accepting data cookies? We can access a 1974 resignation letter in an instant. It's formatted perfectly as a JPEG, it's debated globally on Wikipedia, and it's analyzed deeply by think tanks. But to do all of that, we first have to navigate the surreal, monetized, and privacy-gated architecture of the modern web. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the digital anatomy of history, and I really hope this leaves you looking at your daily internet feed just a little bit differently.